Um, so I know that Mark wrote the lyrics to the song.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering, then when you played it, did it feel like it was meaningful to you, as I think that it has grown to be now, or how do you feel different about what it meant to you then and how it's progressed to now?
Well, the song "Worth It All," when we used to do it, when they first taught it to me, it was meaningful to me because it was an original song. So it was exciting to me that in some way we were creating our own music. So even though I didn't wasn't involved in writing that song, I still found it very inspiring and exciting because we were all starting to write music, to write lyrics and write melodies and not just learn other people's music, but make our own. So, I got to be part of the creative process of taking something original that nobody had done before and finding a way that we could make it special and do it. And so I really enjoyed it. In some ways, perhaps I had the freedom to fully enjoy it in a way that they didn't because they might have been more critical of the song because they were the writers and were thinking about how they could make it better or improve it or where for me I was just like happy to be doing original music and something that I thought had a really pretty melody, and Richard's singing was always just so beautiful to me. He had such a sweet natural voice. Um, so it was fun. It was really inspiring for me. And in looking back, over the years, it's become sort of I know it's a favorite of Anne Marie's. She's just always loved hearing Richard sing that, and Richard always enjoyed it because we had good memories associated with that. And um, but looking back, we saw ways that we could make the song better, lyrically, um, partially because we became better songwriters. So we have better ability, a higher. We were more highly trained to articulate and to have a point of view and express ourselves and create a rhyming structure that might be a little more subtle, you know, because we became more seasoned songwriters. So that was one thing to look back and say, oh well, that could be improved in this way. Normally, you don't go back and rewrite songs. You write a song and then you write another song and another song and another. You continue to. Um, but there was just something always just special about this piece of music and what I just think what it reminded us of and just the it represented. I can only speak for myself, but um, well, I can speak for Richard too in that it represented that time of our lives when we were out there starting to learn how to write music and have a band and get out there to performing and having a creative artistic voice. Um, so that's what that song to me always was. Um, Later on, especially in the last couple of years when Richard found out that he was sick and ended up going through all these treatments and was spending a lot of time not feeling well and in the hospital, we the last couple of years Richard and I spoke more than we had ever spoken in our lives. You know, we've always stayed in touch and we've always made sure we saw each other and um, but we I started calling because I wasn't there. I live in California, so we would speak and a couple times a week, and I wanted to make sure he was okay and see what I could do, and we all of course became fast experts in pancreatic cancer. Which we didn't really know much about, but everybody dug in and started asking their doctor friends, and we found out we could, but the other thing was Richard didn't always want to talk about him, and how he was feeling. It was not that interesting of a subject, um, and and also I can understand he didn't want to be defined by being sick, because that's a small part of his experience and all of ours. Even though this was a very profoundly um, impactful, part of his life and our lives. But Um, so we talked about other things, and we talked about, during this time when Richard was fighting cancer, I was also recording my album that's out right now. So we talked about that a lot, and Richard always had really smart marketing ideas and, very good business sense. So we would brainstorm about that as well as, I would just tell him the minutia of everything that I was doing with recording and what I was thinking of writing and who was coming in and everything. And, it gave him something else to think about, and it was great for me to share that with him. And through our many conversations, Richard had said, you know, he goes, I want to write a song for Anne Marie and surprise her. Will you help? You do me a favor. Can you do something for me? It's really important because I was always saying, what can I do? He said, you can help write a song. So, and he said, I want to surprise Anne Marie. So I said, okay, let's do that. What do you want to write about? And he said, I don't know. And, I said, well, why don't you write about what you know? Write from your heart, write honestly, write about now, what's going on with you now, and what's been going on with you for your whole life, to get you to this place now, and what you see in the future, what you want, and, write what and we can't go wrong. That's how to write, so we brainstormed and talked, and the very first time, when we were really talking about that, I had paper and pencil by me, and Richard was just talking about ideas and writing down some things that he said that I thought were really important and really clear point of view. And it was mostly about Anne Marie. It was mostly about how lucky he felt to have her in his life, and how he didn't know what he would do without her, and just and really talking about that. And I said, well, why don't we write about that? I'll help you. I'm not going to put the words in your mouth because it's your story, but I can help guide you. That's what co-writing and collaborating it is. And so we were brainstorming, and we would get on the phone and talk and email each other things. But the more I thought about it, part of what made it difficult for him to write a song was that he wasn't feeling well. He was distracted by pain and and all the things that go with being sick. And so he was struggling with that, and he really, really wanted to do this. And then I said, well, what, he had always said, I've always been really good at writing lyrics to melodies that already exist. Like I use them as a template. And that was Richard's way. Like he would listen to a song from another artist and then make up a whole new lyric and write it out and then give it to somebody, and then we would create a whole new melody. And so it's a good way to write. So in one of many ways of writing, but it can help create a rhyme structure that gives you something to hang your hat on in a way when you're creating. So we were brainstorming about that, and just intuitively I said, well, why don't we just take a song you already know, like one that you already wrote? How about Worth It All? Anne Marie really loves that song, and you love it, and it's really special to all of our history together and with you and Mark. And so I said, why don't we surprise Anne Marie and rewrite some of the lyrics to that song and then record it? And I said, we'll figure out how to do that, and I can fly to Miami and we'll do it on the computer or whatever. Those are just details. If you're, I had said if you're feeling well enough, we could even book some time at Criteria Studios in Miami, where we had gone when we were kids and recorded. And I said, we could just go in there for a couple of hours, and we'll set up a stool and you'll sing, and whatever happens, happens. It'll be fine, and so we were figuring out all the details of that and seeing if he would be strong enough. But in the meantime, I said, let's just keep writing. So he liked the idea, and I said, this is kind of a cool opportunity because we can go back and alter some lyrics with this perspective that we now have as adults. We were young. You wrote that song when you were 20. You guys were, 18 or 20 or however old you guys were when you wrote that, early 20s maybe. And now you're a grown man. You married a wonderful woman, and you have this beautiful life, and you have created things and accomplished things to be proud of, and let's write about that. And why don't let's use a melody you already know you can sing. And so he liked the idea. So we took it, and I said, why don't we write it from the perspective now looking back, instead of there. You were a young man looking ahead. Is it really worth it all? You're asking the question, is it worth it all? And you don't know. You really don't know. Whatever it is you guys were thinking about when you wrote it, you're wondering, what is life going to be like? Well, you have a pretty good idea right now, because we've both lived a lot of life. We're both in our 50s. And so I said, let's look back I mean, the answer to the question is yes, it is worth it all. It has been worth it all. I mean, isn't that true? Is that true for you? And Richard said, of course. I go, then that's what we write about. So let's look at that and see if we can come up with changing some lines or just tweaking it in a way that's going to make it your perspective now, and then we'll get it to Anne-Marie and surprise her, and it'll be great. So that's what we did, and we worked on it, and it was inspired and emotional and fun, and it gave him something to else to do besides not feeling good, and sad he didn't get to finish the song. He just wasn't strong enough to really be able to complete it. But it's okay, because the process of doing that was a really important experience for him and for me. I think for Mark too, just to know later that we were doing that, and certainly for Anne Marie when I told her about it, after.